Hi, I'm Joe Wells. Welcome to the Hey Joe Show. Today I'm joined by Ray and Doris as we discuss secrets to 50 years of marriage. You know, I appreciate those of you who have tuned in this season to the Hey Joe Show and that you have shown interest in your marriage or you've shown interest in the marriage of other people who have needed to see these videos. And today's episode is going to be in that same vein. We're going to watch a video today. We're going to listen to an audio from Ray and Doris. Ray and Doris have been married over 70 years. Of course, this whole season has just been about secrets to 50 plus years of marriage. But when you talk to people who've been married for 70 years, you've got to start thinking there's something different here. Number one, they were blessed to live that long to get to that point. But number two, even after they reached that milestone of 50 years, what did they continue to learn? What was it that held them together? And, you know, we can laugh and joke and say, well, by that time they had already, gotten too far into it. Maybe there was no reason to find somebody else, but that's not necessarily the way everybody looks at it. But for Ray and Doris, that's the way they do look at it. And I appreciate what Mr. Ray says. And of course, I'll let you hear it, but it has to do with a fishing boat. And I want to invite you to learn about what it takes, according to Ray and Doris, to be married for 50 plus years. All right. I'm here with Mr. Ray and Miss Doris, and welcome and thank you for doing the interview with me.
No problem. Appreciate you asking us.
I tell you what, after I was visiting with you here in Missouri, and the way you were giving me some answers, I knew that you had to be a part of this video, just because your experience, but also quite honestly, because of your wit. And I knew that would be a blessing to the Smoky Mountain Marriage Retreat. So let me ask you this. You've been married coming up on 70 years, we just talked about.
Right.
70 years next month. Is that right? Next month. Okay, so I got to ask, how did you meet? I don't even know if you've told me how you met. How did you meet?
Go ahead.
We met at school when I was in 7th or 8th grade. And we were with older kids because we started to school early. And he was out of school 2 years, and would have been out of school. No, he was out of school a year, and I would have been out of school, but when school was out, but I only went a half year.
Your senior year, you only went a half year?
Mm-hmm. And I got a job. Well, we got married in October and school wouldn't have been out till May. And I got a job and I felt like I needed the job for us to get by.
Yeah.
Because we was only 16 and 17.
When you got married?
Yeah.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah.
What'd you know at 16 and 17? Let me ask you, Mr. Ray. What'd you know at 17?
Nothing. That's the reason I got married again. I needed somebody to guide me.
Somebody to help you along. So what were you thinking at 16? Is that just what people did in the culture kind of where y'all grew up at? You used to get married at an early age?
Well, I had a job making good money. I was making 70 cents an hour, working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, that's $56 a week, just about. So why not get married,
Right, you already had the job.
I already had the job and
needed
everything.
a wife now.
Yeah, I needed someone to help me spend the money.
So did your parents have to agree? They had to sign off?
Yeah,
Our mothers went with us.
And they said that would never work, so we went ahead and got married anyway.
So they had the expectation that it wasn't going to last.
Just see if it would work, we'd want to see if it'd work anyway, so it did,
And here we are now.
And here we are,
almost 70 years later.
Right.
Now, I'll have to say this first 7 years was rough because he worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, with 3 days off a year.
3 days off a year?
Yeah.
4th of July, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Woo! So you're newlywed, but your husband was gone.
And then
Yeah,
when he got home, he was tired. He didn't want to talk. So I didn't talk to nobody except my kids. You know.
For the first 7 years. We know it's interesting you say that because any study I've ever seen says that the first 7 years of marriage is some of the toughest years.
Right.
Second to that would be when your children leave your home, because that's when you're having to decide whether or not I still know this man or still know this woman, and do I still like them? Because sometimes you get so invested in your children, right?
Right.
So y'all married at a very early age. You were working all the time. Were y'all here in Missouri the whole time?
Yes.
Throughout your married life?
Well, the job that he worked so long at, we took a job here in Poplar Bluff. I was a Kennett.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a job here in Poplar Bluff at the boat factory. And I was a stay-at-home mom until that boat factory went out. And when that boat factory went out, I had to go to work. So
Had to help bring in an income,
Yes.
huh? So both of you work in raising children. How many children do y'all have?
we had 4, and we raised 3 Homecrest children's home.
Okay, so you raised 7.
7.
7 children. All right, so let's talk about that. How did children, I don't want to use the word tax your marriage, but did children strain your marriage at any way?
No.
Nope.
They were a blessing to us.
I think it really helped our marriage. Our youngest son, we had 3 girls and then we had a boy. And our youngest son was, our daughter was 11 when he was born. So we were going to foster a boy under 5 years of age, kind of to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And they called and asked if I'd take 3, a boy and 2 girls. And we said yes.
So you prepared for 1, you took 3. Yeah.
And
So you say they blessed you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
they were just going to stay for 2 weeks. But in the meantime, they fell in love with us and we fell in love with them. So we just kept them.
Oh.
They're still my
So
kids.
it's
That's
been,
right.
Been about 42 years ago or 50.
And they're still your children.
Still our children.
That's right.
They made me grandma 8 times.
Oh, 8 times over, huh? Now, are y'all great grandparents as well
Yes.
already?
Great.
I got 13 grandchildren and I got 14 great-grandchildren.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're talking multiple generations that have been impacted by your
Right.
marriage, by your walk with the Lord. So you say the children were a blessing. If you could give anybody watching this kind of an insight into what you mean, how did having those kids, what would you say one thing, having children blessed your marriage?
Yeah.
I mean, they did the dishes, but other than that, maybe.
Well,
One of
children has just always been just so special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just, I just knew that when I took those children, that they had to be treated just like my children. And they're still no different.
Mm-hmm.
When we fixed our will up,
it's
they're
kind
in
of
our wills like our own
it's
children.
kind of hard to introduce our children because our foster son, which is our son, we call him, married our daughter.
Mm.
I mean, we introduced, this is my son, this is my daughter. You know,
And they're married.
They're married, you know. So
Yeah.
it's-
That is
Then-
an
then
interesting
you-
family tree if you're not careful, but you
Yeah.
got to explain that to
you
people,
got to
don't you?
explain
But
it
they didn't get married until they were out of school.
a year or so.
Didn't know that they had an attraction to one another, but
Yeah. What's interesting is you had the opportunity to impact both
Yes.
of them, which rarely does a mother and father get to impact not only their own children, but the ones that their children marry. as
and
well
they've
like
been
that.
married 35 years.
35
And they're
years.
the ones that goes to Wiley.
Okay, yeah.
Wiley Church of Christ.
Oh, very good, yeah.
I don't know if I had any impact on them whenever they was growing up, but I look at my children now and the way they treat their children, I mean, I'm tickled to death over it. I don't know if I had any influence on them doing that. I just feel like I didn't, you know.
Sure.
I feel like I can follow their example better than they followed mine, you know. But they raise their children in a way that, I mean, to me, it's just it's a family.
They're so family oriented. Mm-hmm. All of them are so family oriented.
But they got that from somewhere. I'll tell you that.
I don't know where they got it from.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know who influenced them.
Then we had another nephew that we raised for 2 years. They moved down from Indiana down here, and he would lay on a bed back there at night and listen to some religious program, you know, and he asked us about it. Mm-hmm. Well, we'd give him an answer, you know, and right now he's been a elder for I don't know how many years at Nixon Church of Christ over in the western part of Missouri.
Gotcha. So it wasn't just your immediate children; it was also the extended family as well. So children have been a major part of y'all's mission. It sounds like is what it sounds like. Which oftentimes that plays into because a marriage.
Yes.
It's not just about what you say, it's how you act in front of them and how you treat one another. So with that in mind, you didn't make, now coming up on 70 years by accident. And so part of what this workshop is about is finding out secrets to long-lasting marriages. And of course, I've had people tell me there's no secret. But here's the deal. If it were happening all the time, then we wouldn't be in the shape we're in America, with couples, most families rather, not being able to point to anyone in their family immediate that they know to say they've been married 50 years. So here's what I want to know, and this is what the purpose of this interview is. Each of you, I'd love for each of you to answer separately, not together. But if you had to give 1, 2 secrets to making it to 70 years of marriage, things that you didn't necessarily know when you got married, maybe you did, and maybe that's an important part of this. But 1 or 2 reasons, secrets that you believe you're where you are right now. What are some lessons you've learned along the way? So, Miss Doris, let's start with you, if you don't mind, unless you want to start with Mr. Ray. So what would you tell? There's a young couple maybe that's in this workshop that you're talking to them. What are some things you learned over 70 years of marriage?
Well, my mother was a big influence, I think, over me, because she taught me that the man of the house should be respected. And I taught my girls the same thing. And like on Sunday nights, when we got home from church, the girls would immediately help me fix for the boys, for the guys in our family, before they even thought about eating themselves or doing for themselves. And I just always respected Ray and kind of put him first in my life.
Yeah, well, and do you think that was a cultural thing back then? Because there are going to be some people who may hear what you just said there, and that may shock them a little bit. Because America's not teaching all those same principles today.
But the Bible is.
Oh, in other words, we don't use culture to drive our marriages. We use the Bible.
Amen.
But your mom used that lesson, and it really ingrained in you. So how did putting him first impact you?
I wouldn't be a Christian today if it wasn't for my mother. Because we didn't even have a church in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so I had to go to a denomination church. But every week she taught me the doctrine of the church, of the Bible. So when I was about 15, then I quit and I started going into town. We didn't have a way to get into town to go to the church. But then when I was about 15, we did. And then I taught Ray what my mother taught me. And that's how we become Christian. But
was he a Christian when y'all married?
No.
No.
He was not, okay.
I wasn't either.
Yeah. So let me ask you, okay, so y'all had a long journey together in this then. So let me ask you this before I turn to Mr. Ray. And you said something there that's pivotal. And I think that is a key component to why you believe your marriage has lasted so long. You said, I put him first. That's what you said. So let me ask you this. In doing that, were there ever struggles that you felt inside of you? Did you ever feel maybe that you were given more than you were getting, or did you ever feel let down at times? And if so, how did you deal with that? Because there's going to be a young wife who's hearing this. And, you know, for an individual who's walked the road you have and had the success of marriage you've had, it might be valuable for her to hear, look, what I said is still truth, but it doesn't mean it was easy.
Well, Ray is not one to show his affection, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that the hard way. But my mother made this statement one time. He doesn't believe in gift given for everything there is. But if I ever mention wanting something, he goes and gets it then. He said he doesn't believe in this. He thinks he ought to give. If I ask, he should give. And my mother made this statement one time. Well, he may not be a gift giver, but you better not mention anything, because if you do, you'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way he was.
So while it may not have been, you know, today's language, they say, well, we all have different love languages. That's the catchphrase. And so while yours is affection, you had to learn through the course of your marriage that your husband didn't talk the same way you did in that love language area. So, but it doesn't mean he didn't talk. He was expressing his love and appreciation for you in the way that he knew how, in the way that he communicated, right? So, Mr. Ray, let me ask you this. This is the hard part. And I asked Miss Doris to go first because I knew she was going to set the bar pretty high, right? Now, here's the deal, though. I want you to be real with this group. What would you say is one or two secrets to making it to 70 years? There's got to be something you learned along the way that maybe you didn't quite understand when you got into marriage.
Well, if I got a good fishing boat, why would I want to go trade it for another one? I seen this woman and I said, I want that woman to be my wife. And that's been 70 years ago. And I still say the same thing today. It just, I mean, if you see something, I ain't never looked at another woman. I'll be truthful with you. I don't care about that. And I won't, she's my wife, and that's the way I want it to be. And it's the way it's going to be until the day I die. And I don't have no, anyway, it's just what I wanted. And so I said, well, we'll see what we can do. And I know I've not been a perfect husband, perfect father, but I do the best that I can. And the jobs that I had, I've had to get away from them because I told her one time, I said, well, if I can ever get away from this job, I said, I'll go back into church. I was out of the church for 15 years. And I repented of that every day of my life. And I went back into the church and I started studying the Bible. Well, you might say, preached for 12 years. Mm-hmm. You went to the Candlelight University, in other words, as it's like. I studied at home with them 7 children, you know. I had to fix every lesson. I remember the first lesson I ever gave was one from Garland Elkins down in Memphis. I called him and asked him if I could use one of his lessons. And I had never stood before a congregation in my life. And he said, yeah. He said, you can use that whole book. He said, just take it throughout the world. And said, preach it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And but anyway, I'm with her. And I figured she'd follow along with me, and she did, you know. And like I say, we raised her children that way.
Mm-hmm.
But with her being the mother that she was, and me trying to be the father that I should have been, or could have been, I hope and pray that I was a father that they followed,
Yeah. Well, I like your illustration. When you have a good fishing boat that you already picked out,
Yeah.
you weren't looking for another fishing
I
boat.
wasn't.
I don't know, Miss Doris, how you feel about being compared to a fishing boat, but in the eyes of Mr. Ray, that's pretty significant. But to your point, though, I think what you said there was your eyes were set.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily what a lot of men in culture believe.
No.
It's almost like a you're my right now, not you're my forever.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you made a commitment. That's what it sounds like. But not just that, it's you had to have an internal resolve not to be looking. Now, let me ask you this. Did that ever cost you anything with men at work, or did it ever?
No.
Was that ever an issue that was raised that might have been you've been picked on for, or anything when you were
No.
in your earlier years?
No, nothing at all. It was just always in my mind that was what I wanted, and I stayed with it,
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I'll tell you what, let me ask you this, because both of y'all, now you can choose how to answer this one. Last question for our particular time with this interview is in conflict resolution. And I know you've learned some things, and of course I get all kinds of funny answers when I ask about secrets to 50 years of marriage or more, or how do you deal with difficulties. But just on a very real front, how have y'all found that you were successful in dealing with conflicts? I don't want to say arguments, right? We have intense moments of fellowship, or whatever you want to call them. Conflict resolution. What would you say is one thing you've learned, or a piece of advice you would give to a younger couple dealing with perhaps some conflict in their
listen
marriage?
to each other. Listen to what each other has to say.
Never go to sleep unless you kiss goodnight.
Can make a big difference, huh? And listen to each other. Sometimes people just listen to reply.
Right.
Have you ever heard that before? It's hard to listen when all you're doing is fabricating your response. But you're saying listen to listen.
Right. I read in a paper just yesterday that there was two people fighting. You know what they was fighting over? They was fighting over who's going to keep the kids. We never had that problem, which she was a homemaker. She's the one that kept them all right. Man, with no problems, I never could change one's diaper. That's my fault, I guess. I never could change a diaper.
Well, it's pretty technical.
I know.
It's pretty technical.
My grandsons and my son takes care of their kids just like the mother does.
Yeah.
That's what I say. That's where I don't
But
know.
now, Ray didn't do that.
I think that's a cultural thing too.
But that's okay.
More men today are kind of helping in that area than I think times past. But that's just because culture has changed and impacted our homes.
Now, you
So-
did help with Marcus.
You
You probably changed a diaper or two on him.
I had to.
I was in the hospital for about 3 months.
No, and if it was going to get changed, then that's going to be a long time.
Been long.
Yeah. So you said kiss each other goodnight every night.
Yes.
What's the power in that? If you could say, just from your opinion.
I've seen times when I kissed him and I really didn't want to.
What?
No,
Maybe he had irritated
But
you a little bit or
but
something?
No, really. I mean, I just think that's an important thing. To never,
I think it's very important.
don't hold a grudge. I mean, there's no need in that.
Now I don't know a single time that holding a grudge has actually been beneficial to a relationship.
No.
No.
So kiss each other every night. Listen. For the sake of listening, choose a fishing boat and stick with it.
Right.
And then respect.
Exactly.
And I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much for choosing to sit down for this interview. I know there are a lot of things y'all said off the camera that I wish these folks who are going to watch this video at the workshop would be able to hear, but they're just going to have to come to Missouri and talk to
Exactly.
Mr. Ray and Miss Doris themselves is what they're going to have to do to hear all those other stories. So thank you so much. And hey, y'all are blessing people by doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, one thing that I reflect on when I listen and go back and see the video, the interview that I did there with Ray and Doris, is that they definitely came from a different starting point. Their culture 70 years ago, it seems like, was so different in America, especially as it pertains to what Miss Doris said regarding the way she was raised. And of course, I don't want to pretend that there are not some homes today that are still raising their daughters to understand that in the home that the man should be respected, but there's not seeming to be a lot of that reinforced within our culture. But you'll notice what was said in the video, that even though culture is not reinforcing that God's word has never changed. And no matter what our culture says, who says, that's oppressive, or how dare we even have those conversations? I mean, after all, this is, in the 2025, what are we talking about? The reality is God was not surprised that 2025 was going to come about. And the Bible was not only written for the individuals back then, it was written for us today. And the truths of God's word are just as important. And I just wonder, there's a part of me who wonders, and I don't know, maybe you wonder, maybe you've got stories about this that you'll share in the comments or the links below the video or on our social media page. Why do you think it is that this is such a taboo issue when you start talking about respect in the home for the husband and families raising their daughters that way? Why has that become an issue that we just can't touch in modern day America? But Miss Doris says that's the way she was raised, and that's the way she always tried to approach it within her home. Now, I loved it as well when you start looking at what Mr. Ray said initially. I think there's a major point here that I need to drive home for men. He said his eyes were set. In other words, he was not open to other women. And when you think about the resolve that is there, I can't help but think about Job chapter 31 and verse 1, where Job here, in dealing with his own life and his own integrity that was being called into question, he said this in verse 1, "I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I gaze at a virgin? And what is the portion of God from above, or the heritage of the Almighty from on high? Is it not calamity to the unjust and disaster to those who work iniquity? Does he not see my ways and number all my steps?" In other words, Job says, hey, look, when you start talking about making it to where integrity is not something you check in and check out of, but something that you have consistently, it starts with a healthy view of what God knows and what God sees. Number one, you can't hide from God. But it also is this concept there from verse 1. He said that I've made a covenant with my eyes. He says, I'm not going to look at one that I'm not supposed to look at. I'm not going to imagine things in my mind that I should not imagine, or look upon a woman that is not my wife. And when you start thinking about what Mr. Ray said, it has profound impacts today. Last season on the Hey Joe Show, we spent an entire season dealing with the subject of pornography and the impact that has on individuals' lives and on their marriages, and trying to instill that you can break free from that addiction, that you can find hope at the end of that very dark and despairing tunnel. And of course, I hope that you'll go back and listen to those episodes from last season dealing with that. But here's the deal. Mr. Ray laid out a fundamental principle that every man who's listening to this needs to hear, or who's watching this, you need to understand. And that is, you must take ownership of what your eyes look at. Now, there's somebody in the background. There's maybe a lady whispering, amen. Amen. And maybe some guys going, amen. But the reality is that is a real struggle. That's a real struggle, not just for men, but also for women. But what Mr. Ray said, he says, I set my eyes. I wasn't open to another woman. Job said, I've made a covenant with my eyes. I'm not going to look at someone who's not my wife. And here's something that I just want to kind of drive home to the men. You know, your wife not only listens to you and she observes you, she notices where your eyes go. She notices how long your eyes stay there. And even if you think you're hiding it, somebody passes by, you have a glance, your wife, if she sees that, she is cut to her core, because she already wants to be the center of your world when it comes to what a woman is supposed to look like and what is attractive to you. And when you give another woman a piece of your eyes and time and your mind, that hurts her. Now, look, on top of this, you know you can't hide that from God. And here's the deal. Looking does not always equate to lusting. And we need to get that out on the table. An individual who walks by and is noticed by you, that doesn't mean that lusting took place, because lusting is an internal concept that you can look and you can say, whoa, I need to not look at that, and bounce away. And I promise you, if your wife sees you do that, then she's going to feel valued. She's going to feel endeared to you and drawn closer to you because you did bounce your eyes. But the reality is sometimes looking turns into gazing, and gazing turns into lingering. And the reality is our wives see that. And more importantly than that, God sees that. And your heart can't be divided. And that's one of the things that I loved about what Mr. Ray said, is that his eyes were set. Now, I'm not sure that I would compare my wife to a fishing boat, a John boat. But Miss Doris, you know, when I asked her about that, she seemed to kind of giggle about it, but she knows Mr. Ray. After 70 years of marriage, she knows that when he says, hey, when you got a John boat that you like, why would you trade it in on another one? In her mind, she knows that that's him saying, I'm his favorite John boat, as you and I take that to mean that that's the epitome of what womanhood should be for Mr. Ray. But here's what I saw in that. What I saw in that is a cute couple who've been married 70 plus years, who were still drawn closer to one another as they affirmed that they were the standard for one another. I loved, as well as Miss Doris was closing that out with a statement. She says that she believes it's important to always kiss one another goodnight. And I love Mr. Ray. He was like, I agree with that too. And of course, I don't know a single husband that wouldn't agree with that, right? But what she was talking about and what Mr. Ray was talking about is don't go to bed holding a grudge. You know, you have a choice to make when it comes to your spouse, when it comes to people who hurt you in general. But for the sake of this podcast season, you have a choice. Are you going to continue to hold on to that and let that eat you up and that impact the way you respond to your spouse? Or are you going to learn how to let it go? Are you going to learn how to extend grace and extend forgiveness? And you say, well, I'm going to forgive as soon as they acknowledge their problem. Well, pride enters into this, and maybe it's pride from the offending party, and maybe it's pride from the side who was offended. In other words, when pride comes into play, then conclusions and healing oftentimes run away. They're not going to be found. However, here's what I do know is oftentimes, even when somebody does say they're sorry, that pain that still lingers from the fact that somebody you love so dearly could do that to you, it still allows Satan an opportunity to plant seeds of grudgery in our heart. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to hold on to that and harbor that, because what happens is it's like putting a stone on a wall. And every time you hold on to a grudge, it's one more stone and one more stone and one more stone and one more stone, until finally one day as husband and wife, you wake up and you say, I don't know where this big wall came from that's in between us. Well, I can tell you where it came from. It came from continual hurt and continual holding on to hurt. And so what Mr. Ray and Miss Doris remind us of today is this: you have a choice to stop building the wall. You have a choice to no longer put a stone on the wall. And of course, I like the way they said that, by kissing each other every night. I would agree with Mr. Ray. I agree that's a good thing. Anyhow, that's all I have for today. I appreciate these interviews. They remind me how cute people can be. and how beautiful marriage is. And I hope and pray that's what you're getting out of this season as well. Thank you to all of those over at the Light Network for allowing the Hey Joe Show to be a part of your family of podcasts. We appreciate being a part of that group and want to invite you over to the lightnetwork.tv to check out all of those podcasts that are there. We obviously always want to invite you to check us out online at kyopublications.org and also to like and subscribe to the Hey Joe Show wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to next week's episode. God bless. If you like that clip, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you'll be notified every time a new episode releases.